Why orcas don't kill humans? There are no records of orca ever hunting and killing humans in the wild, despite numerous interactions between the two species. Orca have been known to prey on whale species larger than themselves, and they're the only known predators of great white sharks. Their diet also consists of seals, fish, and seabirds. In today's video, we'll talk about how and why orcas never attack humans, us. And yeah, that's pretty much true. First off, they're in the realm of primate-level intelligence. They're self-aware. This alone puts them on a very short list, as of the animals tested, only 10 animals on the planet, human is one of those 10. Now add to that the fact that they have an incredibly sophisticated language among themselves. This further shortens the list considerably. Yes, all animals communicate in some way, but actual language is exceedingly rare. So I don't think anyone will argue about how highly intelligent orcas are. Next, let's talk about how this level of intelligence is used. One way it's used is in orca parenting. An orca calf will stay by its mother's side for at least 2 years. This in itself is not especially rare in the animal kingdom, but it's what happens during those 2 years that's notable. Obviously, teaching is what happens. The mother teaches her calf everything it needs to know about orca life and how to survive and thrive in their world. Of course, mothers of many animals do this, but other animals don't have the level of intelligence and the refined language that orcas have. So the teaching that goes on within an orca pod is highly specialized and detailed. It's next level stuff. Why? Because they can. Their teaching is generational. In other words, a mother can teach a child something that the mother learned from her mother. I'm not talking about instinctual knowledge. I'm talking about specific facts that are passed down and learned, without each generation having to experience the situation firsthand. This is not the case for most animals. For instance, consider a pride of lions. Although relatively smart, lions are not one of the 10 self-aware animals, and they're well below orcas in intelligence. I picked lions because prides are somewhat similar to orca pods, and teaching happens in lion prides as well. So it's a good comparison, which will accentuate the huge difference in level of and method of learning between the two groups. Say some lions come across a giant porcupine out on the savannah. There will undoubtedly be some of those lions that go over to the porcupine because to them it's a potential source of food. Hey, it's moving! It must be food. Now, if one of those lions has come across a porcupine before, chances are it'll remember the sharp quills that it had to pull out of its nose and the pain it caused. That lion is likely to mind its own business and stay clear of that damn thing. However, those without first-hand experience and without first-hand pain are going to go investigate. Undoubtedly, a few will surround the critter, a few will sniff at it, maybe paw at it, and they'll get a paw or face full of pain. If the porcupine is older and more experienced, he'll likely survive this common experience and eventually waddle off unscathed. This little drama teaches us 3 things. First, the one lion that knew what kind of pain a porcupine could inflict did not tell the others. There was no trust me, guys. I wouldn't do that if I were you. This shows us, like I said above, that although all animals communicate, very few have an actual language. Second, it shows us that there was no generational knowledge. Surely somewhere among those lions' ancestors, some of them came across a porcupine before, but that knowledge wasn't passed down. No lioness in that pride had learned and retained any info about these porcupines, pincushions, from their parents or grandparents. Each lion has to learn about them individually. And third, lions will instinctively think, hey, it's moving, it must be food. Nobody, no parent or pride leader, told anyone that that could be food. Each lion instinctively assumed it until they learned otherwise. Now, all 3 points that I just made, they would have each been handled differently by a pod of orcas. First, if one of the pod members knew of some danger, let's say it's a poisonous spiky lionfish, he would have told the others, trust me guys, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Not in a sentence like that, but with enough words to convey that message. Orcas do have detailed language. Now let me clarify that. Of course, it's not like human language, but in a sense, grammar exists. The words convey the equivalent of adjectives, verbs, and personal names. For instance, there isn't necessarily a word for lionfish. It can be named with an adjective, possibly along the lines of bad, dangerous, not edible, etc. A word that expresses that concept. As far as verbs, the concept expressed by these words would be things like come, escape, line up, attack, etc. And finally, personal names, belugas in particular, have been discovered to call out names for specific individuals and respond to their specific names when called by their pod members. All concepts necessary for these animals to live and survive can be expressed through adjectives, verbs, and personal names, particularly in combination. For example, some combination of words must be expressed to get pod members to line up and perform the wave washing maneuver, which causes a wave to wash over a small piece of floating ice, pushing a seal into the water. This requires a high degree of cooperation and precision. These orcas are not mind readers, nor is this an instinctive behavior. Clearly, one of them must make the decision and instruct the others to perform this move. It's not something that suddenly occurs to all of them simultaneously. With some kind of hive mentality, a language is necessary, language as opposed to most other animals whose verbal communication is limited to not a whole lot more than danger. And let's mate, with the rest of their communication being body language and communicating by example, which is not language but merely communication. Mere communication can only get you so far. Second, because of generational knowledge, there may be members of the pod who were taught by their parents or grandparents not to eat a lionfish. They don't have to experience the pain firsthand to know they were taught, as long as they can see an object that can pass on information on it. And thirdly, orcas don't instinctively go after anything that's moving, assuming it's food. No, they use thought, knowledge, advice, and act accordingly to make a decision. So you see how even we have two similar family groups, both including parents and children, the action of these individuals in those groups are vastly different. One group relies heavily on instinct, the other relies on intelligence, thought, and logical decision-making. Orcas are not simply kind of intelligent, vicious wild animals, they're highly intelligent, thoughtful creatures that happen to live in the sea. Now back to the question of why don't wild orcas eat humans? They know exactly what they're looking for to eat, just as you may look at an apple tree and choose to eat the apples and not the leaves of the tree. Around the world, there are orcas that like to eat sharks. Others like to eat stingrays but not fish. Others like seals and fish but not shark. There are orcas that eat almost exclusively whales, gray whales, bowhead, beluga, even the unicorn-horned narwhal. None of them like humans because they haven't been taught that humans are food. Unlike the lions, they don't have to go after anything and everything that moves. They've been taught what to eat by others in the pod. By their parents, by their grandparents. Why did the word get around that humans are not food? It's very possible that they would have trouble with our bones. Our long bones are longer and thicker than any other animal that they do entirely consume. They don't have to get a bone stuck in their throat to understand that something with these long, thin appendages might not go down easily. They can see we're alien-looking and things that aren't fat and compact are not attractive, don't look scrumptious, obviously they can't swallow us whole. They would leave two options, crunching us up, which would create sharp bone splinters that would be dangerous in their throat, or they could bite the meat from around our bones, as they do with prey such as walruses or large whales. Clearly we aren't big enough, muscular enough, or blubbery enough to swallow them to do that. So the bottom line is, we're not on their menu. Thanksgiving dinner, we don't just eat an entire turkey, it has bones that would harm us if we did that. We cut the meat off. Orcas don't chew us up for the same reason, and they can't bite the meat off, so once again, we're not on their menu. Now we'll get to the final point of contention. It's the old faithful, but they might mistake us for a seal. No, they know what a seal looks like. They see what a human looks like. They're incredibly intelligent and self-aware in their decision-making. They're not sharks. They're more likely to mistake us for a seal or penguin. Then you're likely to bite into an eggplant and then say, oops, I thought this was an apple. Eggplants are obviously not apples, we can see that. Humans are obviously not seals, orcas can see that as well. So once that's understood, it's not that surprising that they don't eat us. But they're called killer whales. Yes, that's what they've been named, but their original name was killer of whales or whale killer. Because early Spanish sailors often watched them kill big whales, it got mixed up when it was translated to English due to word order being different in different languages. As has been mentioned over and over again, there has not been not even one recorded occurrence of a wild orca eating a human ever. I could say that 100 times and still some people will come up with stories they heard about some wild orcas almost attacking a person. Almost. Did someone get eaten or actually bitten? No, but they could have been. Yeah, right, whatever. There are a great many things in the ocean that they don't eat. We happen to be one of those things. The fact is, they don't bite people, they don't eat people, and they don't mistake people for seals or penguins. Why? Because we're not freaking seals or penguins, and they can obviously see that.